You're still watching The Morning Show here on the Arise News channel. The 25th Nigerian Economic Summit has once again refocused national discourse on the dire state of the country's economy. President Muhammadu Buhari has canvassed for a homegrown approach in the effort to find a solution to the multifarious problems of the political economy. On their own, a cross-section of stakeholders representing diverse corporate interests have sounded a warning that Nigeria does not have the luxury of time at this point in order to avert a total collapse of the economy. For a breakdown of all the emerging issues from the Nigeria Economic Summit, we're now being joined by Kayode Pitan, Managing Director of the Bank of Industry of Nigeria, the oldest and largest development finance institution in the country. Pitan has corporate and banking experience spanning over 25 years. Pastor Pitan, welcome to the Morning Show. Good morning.
Thank you very much.
Yes, good to have you here, and thank you for, accepting to be here. Let me ask you a question. When President Buhari addressed the Nigeria Economic Summit, he was making a distinction between prosperity and wealth. Well, it's something I don't quite understand. Maybe you, as a development finance person, will be able to help us clarify it. Because he then went further and said that, look, wealth in Nigeria is concentrated in just about 5 states and the FCT, and the other 31 states, having over 150 million people, are having issues with wealth. And what the government intends to do going forward is to spread prosperity as opposed to wealth. Is there a distinction between prosperity and wealth?
Thank you very much. This is one of the ironies of life. It's like you have wealth that you have a lot of it in a very few hands. So when you're talking of Nigeria, for instance, you look at our foreign reserves, you look at our GDP, you look at the population of the country, So you might have a lot of money, but you have to share that money with a lot of people. Then the per capita income is not as large. So when you're talking of wealth, yes, there are people in Nigeria who are very wealthy, but what about the close to 90 million people who are poor or considered poor? Yes, if we're talking of quantum of money, yes, you can have a lot of money, but when you divide that money down to the people that have to share it, it will not be as much. What we should try to do as a country is to spread prosperity to everybody. So the president was right.
So in other words, you agree with the president. But how well has the Bank of Industry been helping to spread prosperity? Because, your focus majorly, specific areas of the economy, creative industry, for example, agriculture, oil and gas, and all of that. And under your watch, we're told that you've been able to increase the asset base to about 1 trillion naira. But what have been the challenges that you have faced since you took over as Managing Director of the Bank of Industry?
Thank you very much. Yes, BOI is the oldest DFI in the country. DFI means Development Finance Institution. This year will be 60 years old. The bank has done very well. For a government-owned institution, our 2 major shareholders, there's the Central Bank of Nigeria and Ministry of Finance Incorporated. The bank is profitable, and we have been able to reach to different parts of the country. You're asking about some of the programs that we do. We start from even the young graduates when they're in the camp, NYSC camp. We have facilities for them. The JIP program, where they can borrow up to 2 million naira if they have good business ideas. And the security for that facility is just their certificate from the university, And then we have another program for entrepreneurs who are young, between 18 and 35, and they can borrow up to 5 million naira. And also the security for that, 2 guarantors, of the level of assistant manager in a bank equivalent. It can come from the ministry where you can get the money. We have facilities, for small enterprises, for medium-sized and large ones. And over the years, we have seen some progress from small companies to large companies. we have put them into our Hall of Fame, and they are all over the country. You go to Kano, you find Rumbu Sachs, which was a small company. Now they employ thousands of people. You go to Ilorin, you find Kami Industries, which was a small company, now is in billions. Even Innocent, Inewi, the first facility from us was less than 100 million naira. Over the years, they have grown. They employ about 5,000 people now. And then we're now working for government also with the JEEP program. The JEEP program has employed in the last 2-3 years about 2 million Nigerians. We have touched their lives. These are government programs. If you look at Bank of Industry, in the last 4 years, we must have been able to create about 2.7 million jobs. So all in all, between what we were doing in Bank of Industry and what government was doing through Bank of Industry, over 4 million jobs have been created.
Well, thank you for taking us through that. These are great achievements. Indeed, sir. But I wanted to ask you, there's a process, I'm aware of that, but for the sake of our viewers, because if I had $1 for every time somebody has asked me if I know anybody at Bank of Industry because they're looking for a loan, I would be giving loans myself. There's that impression that still exists that you need to know somebody. So I want to put that question to you so that you can dispel that officially. Okay.
I have heard that. I've been MD CEO now for 2.5 years. We should not be speaking for ourselves. What I would like you to do is to talk to some of our customers. The bank is not what you hear from outside. People say you need to know somebody before you can get money from Bank of Industry. That is not true. Many times I go out now to functions, and people come to greet me and say, we want to just thank you. I say, well, why? We're your customers. We got $1 billion, we got $2 billion. Because we have a process in place. You don't have to know anybody in the new BOI to get money. Things are done transparently. Some of the processes are online. If there are documents that we require, we will let you know. Like the one we run the program for Nigerian content development, my main board, $200 million for oil and gas. Is end to end. When you apply, we will see it at Bank of Industry. They will also see it. We have agreements in terms of timelines of when things should be done. So that is done. But one thing that people need to be aware of is that even though Bank of Industry is a government-owned bank, most of the funds that we deploy are private funds. Let me be more specific. We don't get allocations from the budget. Last year, there was a provision of about 10 billion naira for Bank of Industry to help to de-risk lending to SMEs. Last year, we disbursed about 270 billion naira. So if you are getting 10 billion, either in terms of de-risking money or in terms of equity from government, and you are deploying 270 billion, the question is, where did the money come from? We have to raise money in Bank of Industry. Last year, we were very successful. For the very first time, we were able to raise $750 million in the international market. For a government-owned bank to be able to achieve that, that was good. We had the assistance of Central Bank of Nigeria and our ministry to be able to do that. But the point is, if the money that we are getting came from private banks, there are conditions attached to those funds. So when I hear people say Bank of Industry should give us facilities and not ask for security, or they should water down what they are asking for, they're not being realistic. They need to know the money coming from Bank of Industry, where is it coming from? So there are some conditions that we have had to meet, and we have to make reports. If that is not done, then you will dry up the sources of the funding of Bank of Industry, and you will starve the industry of funds. As at now, we still don't have enough.
So in real terms, then, how many businesses can the Bank of Industry support with single-digit loans? And at the same time, how many businesses do you think we're going to need? Like, how many financial institutions like that are we going to need in order for us to cover the amounts of SMEs in need in Nigeria right now?
That question is a bit technical. You say, about how many enterprises are we going to support? It depends on what they're asking for, and how much money we have. If I were to rephrase the question and say, for instance, what type of funding gap do we have, in the MSME space? From our own calculation, done by KPMG when they were working for the Industrial Council, they believe that there's about 900 billion naira shortage funding gap annually in the country. We have Bank of Industry, we have the Development Bank of Nigeria, and a few other ones. But even the two of us and a few other ones who are in this business with us, it's not enough to scratch the surface of what is needed. So yes, we can do a lot. In terms of numbers will depend on how much they are getting. If you are giving out 10,000 to people, then you will talk of millions upon millions. Don't forget, from the statistics, we have roughly about 41 million MSMEs in Nigeria. They contribute about 70% of employment and about half of the GDP. So that's quite a large number. So we need more. Yes, BOI is there, DBN is there. We need more banks like that. It's difficult getting the type of money. People talk of single-digit borrowing. There are many things that make it difficult. For instance, the inflation rate in Nigeria is over 10%. When you are getting money at less than inflation rate, the money is subsidized. The question is, where do you get subsidized funds? Everybody knows it makes sense to take money at 10%. So we have more demand on BOI than BOI is able to provide the funding because it makes sense to borrow from BOI.
I would like to bring up another issue. This year's National Economic Summit has been a lot of talk about the fourth industrial plan, about the year 2050, and how Nigeria can prepare for that 2050 industrial revolution, and how Nigeria can prepare for that fourth industrial revolution by the year 2050, when Nigeria will hopefully have about 400 million people. And there was a lot of emphasis on having a competitive private sector economy. And the president himself talked about partnership between private sector and public sector. But let's take a short break. I'll come back, and then I'll phrase the question. Stay tuned. Welcome back to The Morning Show here on the Arise News channel. Still with us in our Abuja studio is Kayode Pitan. And what the private sector has been saying at the Nigerian Economic Summit about having a competitive private sector economy to shift the gears by the year 2050, when Nigeria will have issues of demography and all other kinds of challenges. I asked this question because yesterday we had a gentleman on this program, Dr. Sam Amadi, who was saying that the government, the state, needs to do a lot more. That it's more about the state for us to be able to shift the gears. But what we hear from the Economic Summit is that the private sector has to do, in fact, a lot more. Where do you stand in this matter?
Well, thank you very much. There has been a lot of debate about the year 2040, year 2050, Nigeria going from 200 million in population size to about 400 million. The question is it a blessing or a curse? It depends on how we prepare for it. And the time to start doing something about it is now. 400 million people, many of those 400 million people will be youth. The question is, what kind of youths are we generating now? What kind of education do they have? When you look at it, a lot of other countries in the world, the more advanced countries, actually, they are not having as many children as before. So they actually need people. But what kind of people do they need? Now, there's hardly any family. If you go to 2 or 3 families in Nigeria, somebody has gone to Canada. The question is, what are the type of Nigerians that are going to Canada? They have a scoring system. They are taking our best. Very soon, US will have the same kind of scoring system. And most countries of the world will have that one, or they are taking the ones among you that have money to invest. So we are losing our best. So what we need to do is to invest in the youth of today so they can be competitive tomorrow and we can export them. Then it now becomes a good thing for Nigeria. But if we don't invest in this youth, then the 2050 you are talking about, of 400 million Nigerians, will be a scary proposition. Because you have people who are not educated, who don't have jobs, then you can just imagine what is going to happen. the world of tomorrow that we're looking at is a digital world. We need to invest in that. Robotics, all of those things, that is what the future is talking about. Fourth industrial revolution. Nigeria has been blessed. Look at the telecoms industry. We were able to leapfrog. We can do the same, but we have to invest in our educational system. The type of courses that people are being taught. We talk of entrepreneurship. Somebody says that they are teaching it in some universities. But we are talking of practical entrepreneurship. Secondment of students, into organizations while they are yet students. Letting them know how to prepare business proposals, and to even try and do some things. If you don't do that, then the future you're talking about will be a scary one for Nigeria. Because oil, that we, is a depleting resource. Not only that, most of the advanced countries now are doing alternatives. If they succeed in what they are trying to do, and our oil is not as valuable as it is now, and we have the population, then there's problem in the future.
No,
but I hope that
I'll
we're going to take the opportunities. Talking of working with private...
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Okay. Because I was asking, where is the weight? The state or the private sector?
Public.
In terms of responsibility, yes.
Yes, private sector can help. But we're trying to attract foreign capital. Foreign capital will go to any country where it is welcome. Rule of law is very important. Having a level playing field for the players in industries is very important. Having the infrastructure, because nowadays, when the foreign companies come in, or even local companies, they have now become governments by themselves. You have to have your own borehole, you have to generate your own power, transport system, logistics, housing for staff, different kinds of things. So all of those costs make us not competitive. Now, you're talking of the African Continental Free Trade. If you're able to, hand some of these things that we're looking at now and reduce the cost of doing business, then Nigeria can be a country where we can be exporting out, most of the things that we are producing. So there's still work to be done by the government, because now the burden on the private sector, multiple taxation, even to be able to, in some states, we are in virtually every state. We want to give out loans to people. They want to give us security of their property. We've had to, to be writing to the governors to chase them sign some of the COOs, sometimes 2 years. So when you say there's a delay, it's not from Bank of Industry or some of these banks. The documentation that are required, land ownership, all of those things. There are many things. So private sector has to work with government. I think what private sector can do is they have to be able to second more of their staff, because sometimes we have a capacity problem in government. If you want, most of the countries of the world, some of their best people work in government. Singapore, France, when they come out, they want to work for government. We should let Nigeria get to that level where our best and the brightest are working for government. Then the laws will be different. Then they will know that what they are doing. When we go out to negotiate outside the country, let us send our brightest. Things will change. So there is still partnership to be done between government and the private sector. But I think private sector needs to step up. If government is not stepping up, they have to push a little bit more so we can have the Nigeria that we all desire to have.
I have two questions for you, sir, based on what you've just said. Still on the issue of public-private partnership, can you tell us about the federal government's intervention in partnership with BOI, Afrexim Bank, and NSIA to develop special economic zones around Nigeria? Obviously, there's a pilot scheme. What is the status of that? And what is the ultimate plan? Because the pilot scheme is for Eyimba Economic City, Funtua, Cotton, and Lekki Industrial Park. What will the next phase of the rollout look like? Because to tie in with the president's remarks at the economic summit, where wealth is concentrated in 4 or 5 states, will these special economic zones be represented all over the country? That's my first question. I'll let you answer that.
Okay, thank you very much. The idea is to start with a few states, where we have some clusters. If you talk of Funtua, you talk of Katsina or Kaduna, you have the cotton, and the garments can be in that area. You look at Eyimba City, some manufacturing already around Inewi. You have Inosin, you know, and then you look at Lekki, you know, and there are some people who have expressed interest in coming in. Government, there's a blueprint that government has looked at. There are some issues, you know, legal issues that some government departments are looking into. But government, you know, is keen on doing this. And I'm sure in the next couple of months, the new minister has resumed of the Ministry of Industry and Investment, you know, so you will hear more. But the point also is that you can't start 20 industrial parks at the same time because you have a funding constraint. So the idea is to start with the areas, you know, that we can get something going, you know, the low-hanging fruits. And then you can now spread that into other parts of the country. So yes, something is being done. Government is looking at this, the ministries, you know, Justice Ministry, and I believe in the next couple of months, you will know clearly the action of government.
Right. You referred to some bureaucratic challenges to people seeking loans being able to get their collateral. What are the collateral requirements of BOI? And how do you manage the risk of bad loans, non-performing loans? How do you manage that risk? What is the ratio of bad debts?
Okay. Thank you very much. We have loans in all categories, starting from the small ones, like I said, that we give to graduates, to the large ones, where we give out billions of naira. We also have facilities that we give out working in partnership with state governments. We call them matching funds. How does that work? We go to Kano State or we're in Kwara State. We tell the state government, if you give us 1 billion, we will match that 1 billion with another billion. And we will lend that money out in your state. The idea is to also let the state governments be part of what we are doing in that state. So collectively, we can work on the areas of emphasis, and then collection becomes a bit easier. The truth is that most of those matching loans have not worked out very well. Why? The average Nigerian believes that the facility from Bank of Industry is part of their own national cake because the bank is owned by government. So the repayment history on those type of facilities is very poor. Sometimes we have lost all the money, sometimes 70%. That was why over the years, you know, because like I said, we are 60 years old. We have now evolved and said to ourselves, you know, we must ensure that we don't concentrate our risk in the areas where we can lose all the money. So when you look at the portfolio of the bank, you know, in terms of how much money that we are giving to that sector that is very risky, maybe about 20%. Most of our loans are to the medium-sized and large enterprises. We are about 80% of our loans are concentrated. And those loans are well secured. Usually, we ask the commercial banks to give a bank guarantee before we disburse the money. And we tell them, look, our major, the major value that we provide is that, one, we are able to give you money at single digit. Secondly, we're able to give you money for a longer tenor. Most of the commercial banks, their deposits are for 60, 90 days. We can extend facilities up to about 8 years, sometimes 10 years. So when you now look at it, you are now asking, so on total, what is your NPL ratio? How bad are your books? BOI has very good books. On the average, our NPLs are less than 5%, you know, and we have been subjected to international ratings by Fitch, by Moody's, by Augustus. In all our ratings, we are AA. You know, in fact, the loan that we took last year from Afrexim, $750 million US. One of the covenants of the loan that our NPLs will not exceed 5%. So when you're looking in terms of the bad loan of Bank of Industry, we are one of the best in the industry, you know, because over the years we have learned, you know, if you're going to lend to politicians, they will not take money from us directly. They must go to their bank first, get a bank guarantee before they come to us.
Mr. Pitan,
so we have been able to shield the bank.
Mr. Pitan, we need to go on a very quick commercial break, and when we come back, the conversation will continue. Do stay with us. Welcome back. You're still watching The Morning Show here on Arise News, and still with us in our Abuja studios is Mr. Kayode Pitan, the Managing Director of the Bank of Industry. Thank you for staying with us, sir. Now, you were talking about the matching fund scheme and the problems that went wrong with that. Are there any other similar schemes that have failed for similar reasons?
Well, you see, like I said, over the years, Bank of Industry, we have learned from our predecessors. For instance, banks like People's Bank, NIDB, NAFON, all of these schemes are packed up, but the Bank of Industry were the ones trying to recover some of these loans. So we have learned the lessons of why they failed. So, and we are, working, to ensuring that we don't repeat those mistakes. The Bank of Industry of today, it's a well-run bank. It's profitable. It can compete with the private banks. Like you said, our balance sheet is about 1 trillion. NPL is about 5%. And last year, our profit was about 30 billion.
Well, quickly, let me ask you about Nollywood, which is one of the major, areas of focus for the Bank of Industry in the last few years. And we're told that, you have set aside up to about 8 billion or $8 million US to support the creative industry in Nigeria. But on this program, we've had many persons from Nollywood, and each time we ask them about support from Bank of Industry for their projects, they don't seem to either have any clue or they have doubts about the management of the Nollywood. What's the level of engagement between, Bank of Industry and Nollywood? And if there are success stories, would you like to share some of those success stories with us? And if there are things that, players in that sector do not understand in terms of accessing the fund, would you like to offer some clarifications for the benefit of those stakeholders?
Thank you very much. The biggest friend, of Nollywood in Nigeria today when it comes to financing is Bank of Industry. Many years ago, when we realized that we have a lot of creative Nigerians who had good ideas, they have written scripts, and they were looking for funding, on how they could get these scripts to become films and they can show them. And there were challenges, piracy, they will get all these films out, and the same day that you are selling your original copies, that same day on the streets, they are being sold. They have very few cinema houses, where you can actually go and screen, because it's easier to collect money when they are being shown in the cinema houses, So we had to come in. It was not the typical financing arrangement. The question was, how do you help people that what they have, is just the creativity and the scripts, they have the content. So what we came up with, after studying it and working with some of the foreign partners, was to do a study of the whole universe. And I said to ourselves, let us now have some experts like Joker Silva and the others, who were working for Bank of Industry on part-time basis. So when these scripts come, this committee will read them, and they are the ones who will select and say, well, we think these particular ones have prospects. And then who will now fund the production of those films, pay money to the people who are going to do the costumes, the stage, and a few other things. Most of the films that you watch, not to a lot of people, Bank of Industry finance them. Our portfolio in creative industry is over 15 billion naira. The major area, the largest risk area in that sector is content. Because usually they don't have any other security apart from the scripts that they have done. So I'm happy now that other commercial banks have come in. They've come in, when you talk of people like Muabudu and the others, who are success stories now, they should go and ask them where they got a lot of their funding from. Most of the film houses, that you go now and you watch films, we finance them, So people who are in the industry know that Bank of Industry is the biggest supporter of the creative industry today. And we believe that as a country, we need to do more, because that sector has the potential to give gainful employment to a lot of Nigerians.
Thank you for that clarification,
anybody wants to know
sir.
How we do it and what we do, they can come and check our website or just visit the bank.
Thank you, sir. My question for you relates to awards that you've won. Bank of Industry has won Best Development Bank Award, Financial Inclusion Award, and that was given for your work with the JEEP program. JEEP is the government's enterprise and empowerment program, which includes trader money and market money. Now, you must have heard the criticisms of these schemes, whether they're political or practical. Some people simply don't buy it. Can you actually try and sell it to those who don't buy it? And has it managed to meet its target of reaching 1 million beneficiaries per year?
Thank you very much. Now, the government programs that have been managed by BOI, like you said, the JEEP programs, we have the market money, we have the farmer money, we have the trader money. Trader money, probably is the most popular, because that is 10,000 naira that we give out to people, in every state, Now, people will say 10,000 naira is not a lot of money. Yes, we believe. But like you said before, when you look at the structure of Nigeria, people don't realize that 10,000 for some people, it's a lot of money. These are monies they have to go and get from money sharks and pay rates that don't make any sense. We've been able to carry out this program successfully. As at date, about 2 million people are benefited from these programs. Why were we winning awards? Because even the speed of rollout, we had to rely on fintech. Because how do you reach 2 million people, within a year? Lives have been transformed. They have been transformed. If you go to the site on some of these programs, and you hear testimonies of people who have been changed, people that sell akara, by the wayside, people that go to the market daily, and they have to pay for what they have taken. 10,000 naira is still a lot of money for a lot of Nigerians, So these schemes have worked very well.
Managing Director, Bank of Industry.
Where the people...
Just before we go, we have just about 2 minutes left. I'd like to ask you a question. If you look at the workforce of the Bank of Industry today, it seems to be dominated, including the executive management, by persons from a particular part of the country, particularly the Southwest. Is that a business decision, or you just found the situation like that?
Now, first of all, when you look at the Bank of Industry, like any of the federal government institutions, there are policies in place on how staff come in, So before you can say the bank is dominated by a particular sector of the economy, you need to have our full staff role.
By persons from the Southwest. You as the head of the place, you should know.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
I know, that I'm telling you. So if I know what I'm telling you, that until you look at our whole staff list to know the of the places where the staff come from, then what we have just asserted cannot be confirmed. So from where I sit, I know that what you are saying is not correct. Not only that, people that work there for Bank of Industry, up to GM level, basically you come through the ranks, except you are recruited to fill particular spots. Other ones are government appointed. One of the things that has kept Bank of Industry today, 60 years, look at the whole of the country, the DFIs that we have. How many are working? Government has gotten the issue of Bank of Industry right. All the MDs that have been at Bank of Industry were professionals. If you were to ask me today that if I'm going to leave Bank of Industry tomorrow, what would I recommend? Keep on doing what you are doing. Put round pegs in round holes, and the whole country will benefit.
And thank you, sir. And just very quickly, to go back to trader money and the schemes that we were speaking of, the government schemes that we were speaking of, how many people potentially do you think the Bank of Industry can help? You said we're at 2 million right now. We only have a few seconds.
Well, it doesn't depend on us. It depends on how much money we are giving. So we have disbursed the funds that came from government. If more funds come in, we disburse more money. The potential, we can do 10 million. But don't forget that this is part of what comes from the budget,
And would you say that it's sustainable?
In the last 3 years on this program? Yes, it's based on what is available. What comes from government, we just distribute.
Thank you very much, Kayode Pitan, Managing Director, Bank of Industry of Nigeria. Thank you very much indeed.